Welcome back to the Random Dad YouTube channel. We have a special treat video for you today. I'm really hoping that I can get this Les Paul put back together because I want to play it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Random Dad adventures. Since the last time I talked to you, through the magic of technology, I have toured
the entire world
looking for the correct switches for this Les Paul guitar. As we saw on the first video, I have the original switch here, which is broken, and the new switches, which are very readily available. But if you look, they're a little bit shorter. And so what happens is when you go to mount these things up, they don't come all the way through the guitar, and I can't use them. So unfortunately, I was unable to secure the correct switches for this. But I have learned a lot in the process, and as we've discussed before, that's what the Random Dad is all about. So let me show you what I found in the interim here. Quick supplemental video here. I was sitting here editing the Les Paul video, and I realized I really didn't do a good job at giving you guys an update of why I changed my plan here. Basically, between part 1 and part 2, I took the shielding plate, which is that plastic piece, out of the body of the guitar. Underneath it, the wood had already been chipped out, as you can see, for that center switch. Somebody had already been in there messing with it. And so rather than try to reinvent a switch from 1979 or whatever, I decided that since someone had already been in here and cut some of the wood out, that I would just do that for the switch that I needed to replace. So that's why we changed our tune here and started going with installing the switches that I already had. So you can see this hole has already been recessed out for that switch to kind of fit down in there. And I can, in fact, get the retention nut on here. So I'm going to take this second switch, thread it through, and then I'm going to stand directly above and just kind of turn it so those look parallel. I got to be really careful because I don't want to remove too much material. Just a piece of like soft plastic hose. Okay, so I'm going to take this razor knife here and I'm just going to make a nice little slice. Now let's see if I can clean a little bit of that out with a chisel. I have a sharp chisel here. Can't say that I'm having great luck here. Well, I can tell you this is becoming a lot uglier than I wanted it to. I bet there are some purists out there that are just crying watching me do this.
Dude, please, don't do it that way.
Okay, folks, we've got 2 switches mounted. It doesn't look great on the back side, but this front side looks totally fine. Yep, all 3 switches are mounted. Pretty cool. Now we have to turn our attention to the shielding project. Okay, one thing about the Random Dad is you're always living in uncharted territory. I've never done this before, but I do know that when you're doing anything with adhesive, surfaces need to be clean. So I'm going to try to clean this out as best I can before I start with the shielding. Not super happy with this. I wish I had a better vacuum. Next thing I'm gonna try to do is wipe it down with alcohol to really get any oils off. Okay, quick update. I was taking a look at this cavity to try to start working on the copper tape. It's very irregular. The finish is very rough. There's varnish on some areas are raw wood, and I'm really worried about getting the copper tape to stick and lay down flat. So I was looking around and I found the shielding plate that was all broken. And so I think what I've decided to do, I'm altering my approach a little bit, is I'm gonna lay these two pieces of shielding. They used to be one piece. These two pieces of shielding were broken, and so I removed them. But I'm gonna lay them in. As you can see, they are very flat and uniform. And so I'm gonna use these as like a
Base.
for my shielding tape. So I'm going to clean these really well so the tape sticks to them. I'm going to lay them down into this cavity, and then I'm going to line these with copper tape, and that will fix the breaks and the cuts in this shielding plate, and I think it'll look super cool too. That's my next move here. Cut my first piece loosely to the size that I want it to be here, and then I'm going to try, I guess, kind of work it around here. This cavity is really not uniform, so to be quite honest with you, I'm struggling to decide how to start here. Sorry, I kind of went MIA there for a second. Essentially what I did is when I decided to repair this shielding pan, instead of completely re-shield the entire cavity, I applied a bunch of that copper tape to the back side of this pan to kind of give it a little more structural integrity. And then I added a couple of pieces to the inside. It is not pretty, but I believe that that is going to be at least better than it was before with all those cracks in it. But I'm gonna get to soldering those new switches in next, which is what we came here for. I spared you guys my setup. As you can see here, I've got my little handy helper set up here. I've got a piece of painter's tape underneath where I'm gonna be soldering, because the last thing I wanna do is drip some solder here. I have my little map that's gonna show me which wire to solder to which post. And so I'm starting out with this blue wire here in the corner, and we'll see what happens here. My soldering iron's just getting warmed up. I was able to get a good amount of the wire actually wrapped through the post. There it goes. Okay, next is orange and red. You know, I read on the internet somewhere that sometimes it's easier to solder the ends, like solder these two together and then solder them to the post. So I'm gonna give that a shot. I just don't have enough wire here. I'm not proud of this at all. I don't think I'm gonna be able to live with it. It's hideous, I hate it. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. I'm gonna hit pause on the recording here because I gotta do a serious re-evaluation of how I'm gonna proceed here. I might have to strip those wires back. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough wire to make the connections after, but I'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, major regroup here. I ended up cutting this wire and this wire, and I stripped them back a little bit, and I have them threaded through the terminal of the component. And now I'm going to solder them on there, and hopefully that is going to be the way to go. Going forward, I'm going to do that treatment on all of them. Man, that's ugly. So ugly. Man, I should have used a stick welder for this. It would have come out better. But it's on there. Yikes. That one is not too bad. This is ugly, isn't it? I'm a little bit mortified by it. I'm sure you are too. You guys are gonna have nightmares about that sound of me pulling the soldering iron out.
Oh, random dad's got the soldering iron again. Oh my god.
Okay, major change in plans here. Random Dad is all about trying new things. You also need to know when to fold. It took me a long time to get that one switch soldered in. I was about to start unsoldering the second and third switch and realized
They're not broken.
they look the same, they work. So I'm going to put this whole thing back together now and call it a day. I've got 2 spare switches. I'll throw them in the closet and forget that they even exist. If and when I break another switch, I won't be able to find them and I'll have to order another one, but that's okay. We're done soldering. You don't have to have nightmares about me using a soldering iron anymore. Sliding these switches back through the holes, the original holes. You're never gonna believe this. After I decided to just call it and put the old switches back in, I'm tightening the nut on one of the other switches and it just completely disintegrates. Yeah, the switch fell apart. So, back to soldering. Your reoccurring nightmare
Is back.
So after all that, I didn't even pay attention to what wires went where. I'm going to have to consult this video that I just took. This is what this thing looks like. It just, the threaded part broke off the body of the actual switch. And then if you can see, I've got a terminal that broke here too throughout the process. So I thought I would spare you the absolute horror show that was me soldering that other switch in, but it appears that it is in and it is working. So I'm just gonna do the reassembly here of this whole thing. Okay, I cheated you out of the final assembly process. I apologize for that, but full transparency, it did fight me quite a bit. This is the test here. Is this thing going to actually work? Turn my positive grid spark on. Ooh, volume here. Ooh. It works. All three switches work. The tone knob works. Couple lessons learned here. Those broken switches, I was tightening those nuts, the retainer nuts, with an 8-inch adjustable wrench. You don't want to use a giant wrench or a giant ratchet when you're working on really small stuff. This is the nut I was tightening. Look at this thing. Look at how small it is, okay? You don't want to use an 8-inch crescent wrench on a little teeny nut like that. I learned that the hard way, and I just had to learn the lesson again. But when I was a kid, I was replacing the spark plugs in my 1977 Chevy Blazer. I was at my grandfather's garage, and I just grabbed the first socket that I could find that fit the spark plugs. It happened to be a 1/2-inch drive impact extension and deep socket. Well, I did break a spark plug off, and I had to learn the hard way how to work that out of the head after I ran it half the summer on 7-cylinder. Let that be the random dad lesson for today. Choose the correct tool for the job that you're working on. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're done working on the Les Paul for now. There'll be lots of other random dad content coming out soon, I hope. Thank you. Bye-bye.